how do these transactions translate into like reputation? Because when I hear transaction, I think a lot of people who maybe don't own NFTs, they think of transactions. We're thinking of I'm just paying you. It's a very monetary word, right? But these transactions are actually really representative of people's reputations, right? So how do transactions get beyond just payment and actually show proof of history and that leads to reputation?
So let's talk about like an ideal world, and then we'll talk about what we currently have right now. But in an ideal world, you could have a bunch of different transactions with all of the favorite apps that you're interacting with on chain, for instance, maybe all the different DeFi apps that you're interacting with, all the NFT projects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then when you show up to a new application, either a DeFi app or an NFT, or even a DAO, let's say that you wanted to be a part of a DAO, then that organization, that DAO, that app, that NFT group, they could actually take a look, and then in a perfect world, they would ask for your permission, right? And they'd ask for your permission to take a look at your history, and then they could do an analysis on that history, and then like rate you on how experienced you are. So let's say that you wanted to be the moderator for, Flamingo DAO or something, and you're like, I'm really good at managing the treasury. Well, it'd be really great if you had a bunch of experience on chain that shows that you had managed the treasuries of several other DAOs, and that you had been an active participant in a lot of DeFi protocols, because maybe that's how they want you to manage the treasury on that DAO. And that's what's so cool about these blockchain systems, is that it is keeping that historical record. And it's currently imperfect, because most blockchains, the historical record is 100% on chain and fully transparent, which means that people can take a look at your reputation information on a lot of these blockchain networks without having to ask your permission. But there are improved blockchain networks, like so Zcash is a good example here. And if people want to know your history, you actually can choose permission to reveal it, right? By basically, you can open up basically by signing some messages in order to let them see and be able to verify that you had done those transactions in the past. So in a perfect crypto world, you just basically have automatically collecting all this information about yourself as you're just doing your everyday business across portably, all 100 apps that you interact with. And it's just, this data is compounding for you. And then when you want to interact with new apps, they can take a look at what you've done in the past and use that as a basis for giving you specific benefits or permissions and access into their ecosystems. So your online reputation, just to put it bluntly, if I can see that you have traded tens of millions of dollars on Uniswap with your private key, I'm much more likely to think that you're good at treasury management, or maybe really bad, right? I had to look at your records, than if you had none of that history. So that's just one example, and we're going to have a lot more of those as more transactions have an on-chain component.
Yeah, as you talk through that, I'm kind of realizing a lot of the transactions that are on chain they're trade executions, or it's when you mint from an NFT contract, right? But what we'll see sooner than later, as companies are building products and applications, is transactions will look like posting a blog post or liking content. So in a Web 2 world, every time you click like or you comment, that's I'm putting quotes up in the air for everyone listening. That's a transaction in a Web 2 world, right? It's a action that's getting logged into a database somewhere, right? But a lot of the actions that we're doing in Web 3, a lot of them still happen off chain, like commenting in Discord, or I don't know what else you could throw out right now. That's an NFT thing we're doing that's off chain, but a lot of those transactions aren't actually being recorded on the blockchain, which limits a little bit the reputation we can showcase.
Right. And like one of my favorite quotes is, the future's already here, it's just unevenly distributed. And you can see already some social protocols, and I'll give a shout out to Lens Protocol at Aave, where they are actually putting a lot more stuff on chain. Like, they're trying to put a lot more stuff on chain. And then we're going to get to see how that experiment allows cooler social networks, right? Because there's more of that data is on chain that people can take a look at and then start to build more complex things out of. And then So we have a long way to go on putting stuff on chain. And then when things go on chain, they just, for the people out there who are worried about scaling, it doesn't mean that every transaction has to be on the blockchain. Like you're not going to put every tweet on the blockchain; it would explode. But you could aggregate those transactions with these ZK rollups, or you could store a hash or a Merkle proof, and then the data that you're going to check is going to be on IPFS or maybe even just AWS, and you'll have these huge databases off chain that have all your Twitter post history, but the verification will live on chain. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Like, yeah, you want this thing to be portable. You want to have some privacy around that as an end user, and you also critically need to be able to verify it. And that's the thing that blockchains bring into the picture, which I think is super interesting, and we're going to continue to see more of. So you can already see it in the crypto native places, like with the social profiles on Lens, and that's where the experimentation is going to be. And then over time, more and more of these transactions are going to move on chain. And even just simply, USDC coin and stable coins, you can imagine your everyday purchases. There's just going to be more of that information out there as well, which will create huge concerns around privacy, which also need to be addressed by the industry. But all of this is happening, and this is where we're headed.
You're listening to the Unstoppable Podcast, the go-to place for everyone to learn about the latest innovations in Web3, NFTs, and the decentralized web. Welcome to the metaverse.